Okay. So unless you live under a rock or don't care that much about watching Netflix documentaries, then you've probably guessed by now that my first real boss was John McAfee. And I worked for John in the early 2000s. When I was in my early 20s, I was a student still, and I lived on the property. I had my own apartment on his property. There were 4 of us that did, myself, the groundskeeper, the house manager, and like the maintenance guy. We all had our own apartments. And, this was a time period. The reason why I decided to even do this is that, I'm normally quite a private person about a lot of things, but it's one of the things I get a lot of questions about from people. And when all of these, people were making documentary films about John and his life and all that, a couple of times I was reached out to, and I remember, one of the guys, I won't say who, was really pushy, trying to get me to give him like provocative, just like nasty, but like, provocative information about John. And I worked for John at such an interesting time in his life, as well as mine, but definitely an interesting time in his life, because I worked for him during like a 2 or 2.5 year period where he was totally sober. He was very much into like meditation, self-care, eating healthy, working out. There were, 8 meditation cabins on the property. He would have silent meditation retreats, breathing workshops, all sorts of Mensa parties, or it's like about as crazy as it got, right? And, I saw him every day that he was in town. And it's such a different, the John that I knew and worked for, such a different version of the John that you see in all of these, more recent media and documentary things. And I think about him a lot because he had a huge impact on my life. And honestly, he had a very positive impact on my life. I was, in my early 20s, and, I had the privilege of working for someone who, whatever you think about him today or what he has or hasn't done, which I can't speak to other than my opinion, human beings are super complex, and we all carry within us the light and the dark and the good and the bad. And I think for the most part, anyone who has any self-awareness would agree that whatever they have, done in their life, they've brought all of that with them, meaning, we've contributed in positive and negative ways in our own lives and in the lives of others. And for me, he contributed to my life positively, and I learned a lot from him. And I think that was for 2 reasons. One, he was a brilliant man, very, very smart, and he was willing always to share, especially if I asked questions. And 2, I was curious and I had great boundaries. So that really worked in my favor. But I've been thinking about him a lot lately. He's been on my mind. Can't say I know exactly why. I have some ideas, but he's been on my mind a lot lately. And I thought, the world doesn't have, at least in my experience of, talking to people and it being brought up at dinner parties and things like that, and people always wanting to know more. And when, the media and the entertainment industry sensationalize things because that's what, grabs viewers and holds their attention, I feel like everyone just misses out on some of the complexities of this person. And I thought, I'm going to share. I'm going to tell, the world, or whoever wants to listen, the things that I tell other people who ask me questions, because I think it's worth sharing. So, tea time with T. More coming soon.